Yo, what is up, guys? It's your host, the one and only Sage the Samurai here, coming at you with the new What If. That's right, One Piece fans and Black Clover fans, it's time for us to unite. That's right, it's morphing time, as this is What If Asta had Mihawk, the best swordsman in the world of One Piece, sword skills. Alright guys, so just like I promised to deliver this, and here I am. So I hope you all do enjoy this What If. I got a good amount of time thinking about what I'm planning to do with this What If, and I think I have a pretty interesting idea what I'm going to do with it. Hopefully you guys do enjoy. After all, this was the most voted one that I had of all the other What Ifs, including the Gogeta What If, which you guys seem to love. So I was like, hey, let's go ahead and do it. So besides all that, guys, hope you all do enjoy this What If. Thank you guys for all tuning in on this, and besides all that, hope you all have an amazing day. So let's go ahead and get started with this What If.
You're never gonna make it, you're not good enough. There's a million other people with the same stuff. You really think you're different? Man, you must be kidding. Think you're gonna hit it, but you just don't get it. It's impossible, it's not probable, you're irresponsible. Too many obstacles, you gotta stop it, yo. You gotta take it slow, you can't be a pro. Don't waste your time no more. Who the fuck are you to tell me what to do?
Alright guys, it's finally time for us to start off this What If. Hope you all do enjoy. And either way, let's begin, shall we? We now start off with the very first arc, that being the Magic Knight's exam arc. Now this arc sort of plays out exactly the same, with pretty much we get a whole visual on Asta's childhood. And this is where I'm gonna go ahead and start off this What If, going through Yuno's POV. His time at the orphanage was very well spent. He enjoyed his time together with his brother, not in blood, but definitely they were brothers, Asta's, as he had enjoyed spending time with him and growing up with him. Asta was a very outgoing person, just like in canon during this time, and Yuno, honestly, he had to admit, Asta inspired him to try to be better. However, Yuno did know about something about Asta, and that was the incredible strength that he had. But he doesn't mean physically though. Well, kinda he does. What he was talking about was another side of Asta, one that no one in the orphanage knows except for him. And he saw it before in its glory. And let's just say that although Yuno really does care about Asta a lot, although he didn't want to admit it, he had a small fear of his brother. Flashback. We now see Asta and Yuno currently going ahead and getting groceries, just like they do in canon, as it was getting groceries for the orphanage. Now it was at the snowing nights, as Yuno and Asta were walking side by side, while Asta being very outgoing, while Yuno was just shying away in the back. However, just as they were walking alone, this is when they were suddenly approached by an elderly man who caught interest in Yuno's pendant. So if you guys saw the canon, everything goes here exactly the same. With the man snatching away Yuno's pendant and Asta jumping into action trying to get it back, but the man was very persistent in having it. Due to this, Asta was getting beaten up quite easily and easily getting overpowered due to the fact that he was still at a young age. While Yuno was watching this, he was watching this in both worriedness and in shock that Asta even had the bravery to even stand to this man. However, this is where the true side of Asta that Yuno was afraid of had appeared. At this, just as Asta had grabbed onto the man's hand, biting into it, the man had enough of Asta as he literally backhands Asta in the face, sending him flying up as he goes ahead and crashes into a wall. Yuno, being worried for his brother's safety, ends up crying out for Asta, to which Asta had no mood of response. The man, having a smug look on his face, began to walk away, finally getting rid of the so-called nuisance. However, just as he only got a couple of steps in, this is when suddenly he would then feel it. A dominating presence began to shoot out from behind him. Both Yuno as well as the elderly man were in shock, as this is when he would then turn around, only to see Asta getting up. However, this time, instead of just going ahead and rushing towards him like before, Asta just stood up. He picked up a stick that was on the ground. At this, Asta goes ahead and looks at it for a few seconds. He takes a couple of good swings with it, testing the durability of it. At this, Asta wouldn't speak. It's not very that durable. It'll probably only last for one slash, he would think. At this, the man would then turn to Asta, as he would then see Asta calmly walk towards him. At this, the man, having enough of it, would then rush over to Asta, fully intending to knock the kid out, and possibly giving him a permanent injury. Yuno cries out for Asta to dodge. However, this is when Asta would then speak out loud. However, one slash is all I need. At this, the man, just as he got a couple of inches closer to Asta, This is when Asta, in one swift movement, would do a right slash. As this is when the man would then be sent flying by a dominating force, as he could actually feel a cut on his stomach. He would go ahead and be sent flying, crashing into a wall, leaving a pretty bad dent into it, as both Yuno and the man were left gaping in shock. As Yuno looks at his brother, the one that he grew up with throughout his entire time in the orphanage, he saw no sign of the original Asta that he knew. Instead of having eyes that shine the brightest, as well as having a smile, this Asta was completely replaced by one that showed nothing more but a look of disinterest, pity, as well as a look of cold and calculative look. At this, Yuno had to admit he had never seen Asta like this, and although he didn't like to admit it, he felt fear. As this is when Asta would move his disinteresting eyes to Yuno, and for the very first time in Yuno's life, he could honestly say he never felt even more ashamed of himself. The look that Asta gave him was so disturbing to Yuno, and it was nothing more than a look of pity and disgust. At this, Yuno never felt such a shame for himself, as he actually felt Asta's gaze on him. At this, Asta begins to walk over to the man who is currently now unconscious and probably has a concussion, as he goes ahead and picks up Yuno's pendant. At this, Yuno looks on in shock as Asta begins to walk over to him, as Asta goes ahead and throws the pendant to Yuno, to which he catches. At this, Asta goes ahead and looks at him. At this, Yuno would then look at Asta, however, this is when suddenly Asta would then say something. Pathetic, Asta would say as he looks directly at Yuno into his eyes. Yuno's eyes were wide and his tears threatened to spill out, as he couldn't believe Asta would even say that to him. However, as soon as Yuno sees Asta, he sees that this, even if he's in Asta's body, this was not the Asta that he knew. This, to Yuno, this was a complete stranger. At this, Yuno was terrified. However, this is when suddenly, just like that, Asta wouldn't close his eyes as his shoulder begins to relax, and suddenly he would then snap back, completely losing everything that was before. The cold and calculativeness, this interesting look, and most of all, that look of pity, almost as if everything was beneath him. As Asta begins to look around, he will suddenly see Yuno with his pendant, as well as the man knocked out. Confused about the whole situation, Asta would ask Yuno about what happened, to which Yuno was himself left stunned and confused. However, now that Asta was here, Yuno was not gonna go ahead and let this opportunity slip, as he ends up telling Asta that none of that really matters now. All that's important that he's got his pendant back, and that Asta and him are okay. Hearing this, Asta nods as him and Yuno begin to leave. However, just as they were going though, this is when Yuno will make a promise to himself, as he would never want to feel that way again. And most of all, as Yuno goes ahead and looks determinedly at Asta's back, as instead of seeing the Asta that was in front of him, he was more interested in the Asta that was from before. As he would go ahead and make a promise to himself that he would not be weak ever again, and that sooner or later he will become the Wizard King. As well as, at this, he will look at Asta once again, as he will then make a silent vow that he will surpass Asta. Moving right along with the time, Yuno kept good on his promise as he began to get more confident and more assuring in his skills. He would train daily, harder and harder, as he never ever wanted to see that look on Asta's face again. However, the weird thing was that look on Asta's face never returned. Whatever happened that night, Yuno never saw that person ever again. It's almost as if he never existed in the first place, but Yuno thought better. He knew that he was there, and he knew just how powerful Asta truly was. So with that, Yuno continued on training. However, don't start slouching on Asta, as he also began to train himself, as he trained himself very intensely, just like he does in canon. So we're now going to move even forward through time, and I mean a lot, all the way to the Magic Knight, the spellbook exams. I don't know what it's called, but anyways, that part where they go ahead and get their grimoires. Yuno, just like in canon, gets the 4-leaf clover, while Asta got left with nothing. And this, we're gonna go all the way to the point where the chain mage would attack, as just like in canon, Yuno was caught off guard and got pinned to a wall, while Asta tried to save his brother. However, just like in canon though, as soon as Asta tries to jump in to save Yuno, he will then be stung by a bunch of chains, getting slammed into the wall, as he will begin to give up hope. as this is when another distortion would happen. Asta was there laying on the ground, as you could see the light in his eyes beginning to fade. As Asta was actually thinking maybe he should give up. He had no magic like Yuno. He never even beat Yuno in a spar once. And now, he was actually gonna die. As Asta was closing his eyes, almost nearly accepting his fate, this is when suddenly the chains around Asta would then just be destroyed. As suddenly a book would then appear right in front of him, as well as a handle to what seems like a sword would then appear out of it. At this, Yuno would of course look on in shock. However, this is when suddenly another feeling would then begin to shoot out as well. This time coming from Asta. However, it seemed like once again, this feeling felt familiar to Yuno. As Yuno's eyes would widen, is this when Asta would then pick up the blade. A bit blunt, and a bit too large for someone of your skill, Asta would begin to say as he speaks to the chain mage, who was looking at Asta in confusion, as he wonders just like, who was this guy? As currently right now, looking at Asta, you would not know who exactly he was, as it looked like a totally different person was in the steering wheel. But I guess in the end of the day, it will make use, Asta would say. At this, the chain mage, having enough of Asta's pointless banter, would then shoot off a bunch of chains at Asta, raging, telling him not to underestimate him, and that Asta was going down. At this, the chains approach Asta at rapid speed, as Yuno can do nothing more but watch, as it's been a while since he's seen this form of Asta, and he wondered, like, is he any more powerful? However, this is when Yuno's eyes will widen, as the man known as Asta would suddenly just look at the chain mage with a look of disinterest. As just when the chains were a couple of feet away from Asta, just about to hit him, they were all suddenly just dispersed in an instant, just as Asta just flicked his wrist a little bit with the blade. At this, both Yuno and the man's eyes widen as Asta looks at him. Is that all? If so, what a pity. At this, Yuno couldn't even see Asta's hand move, as just like that, a dark coated wind slash would then shoot towards the chain mage, as he would shoot off a bunch of chains to protect himself, only for all the chains to be cut off in an instant by the ginormous black slash. What? Said the chain mage, as he would then be slammed by the powerful attack, as he gets instantly KO'd instantly. As he'll be sent flying, crashing through the wall, all you could see nothing more but a ginormous slash mark across his torso, and a bit of black remnants in it. Yuno's eyes widened in so much shock, as this one also didn't turn his gaze onto him. Yuno, finally being released of the chains, will look at Asta. However, he honestly did not know what to say to the man. But Yuno being Yuno, he does end up giving him a smile. He then says, "It's good. It's been a while since I last seen you," he would say. At this, Asta would then look at him as he then says, "I suppose," as he would then suddenly just begin to walk away, getting us Yuno's grimoire as he gives it back to Yuno. "I expect to see better from you." At this, Yuno looks at this other form of Asta with a smile and then says, "Just you wait. Trust me. I'll surpass you, and I'll become the Wizard King." At this, Asta looks at Yuno with almost an emotionless look, until suddenly he then gives off a small little smile. "Interesting," he would say. At this, Asta would just turn away, as he then suddenly, that entire dominating aura of Asta would just disappear, almost as if it was not there in the first place, as this new form of Asta, as the original one, comes back, as he then says, "Then it's a promise, Yuno." At this, Yuno will then look at Asta with a nod, as he and Yuno will both stick out their fists, making the same promise like they do in canon, as they begin to make a race to whoever becomes the Wizard King. So with that being said, both of the brothers decide to train themselves for the Magic Knight exams. Both Asta and Yuno, as I'm going to do a time skip now, they begin to train themselves vigorously. To Asta's actual surprise, he was very in tune with the sword. It was almost as if it came, well, no, it was just natural for him, and it was oddly weird. To Asta, he never had any sort of memory wielding a blade, well, except for a couple of glances, such as when he fought that chain mage, as well as that one time where he accidentally just picked up a wooden stick when trying to fight Yuno. But other than that, Asta had no other memory. But now, Asta just seems so in tune with the blade, it was honestly a little bit surprising. When he showed some of his skills off to the other people in the orphanage, the kids were actually surprised, including the Pope, who actually saw Asta as, he has potential. As he was surprised that even Asta even got a grimoire, but to know he actually knows how to use a sword, he actually has hope that him and Yuno will bring the new ray of hope into Hajj village. However, while that was happening though, Asta, during the time of his training, he began to see stuff. By that I mean, each time, whenever he would to go ahead and rest, and he would go to his mindscape, he would see another version of himself. But this time, unlike before, this version of himself seemed much taller, more handsome, and most of all, he seemed like completely the opposite of he is. At this, Asta had tried talking to this version of himself, but he would always just look at Asta then walk away. And each time he would just say, "Still not worthy." As Asta was just wondering, like, who was this guy? As Asta during the training though, he did train himself vigorously hard, still of course with his muscles and everything, of course, he still did the physical training. However, he also did some sword training as well. He didn't even know some of the stuff that he learned, all he knew is that he just knew how to do them. However, by the time of the end of the month though, Asta did learn a bunch of stuff. He actually began to figure himself out just a little bit. As the other form of himself that he saw in his mindscape sometimes, he decided to dub him, which he would dub Older Asta. As whenever he looks at him, he sort of gives off that big bro feeling. As each time Asta would try talking to him, at first the man didn't even want to even talk to Asta, but now Asta was at least able to make small talk with him, like, a little bit of pleasantries, as well as the man even gave Asta a couple of tips with the sword. But other than that, he would literally not talk to Asta. So due to this, Asta had sort of gotten way better. His personality was still sort of the same, but I would say he's a little bit more mature. Well, not even a little bit, he's mature a little bit more in this timeline. So due to this, Asta and Yuno, we can see both of the brothers now leaving, as everyone in Hajj village was of course, giving them a good farewell, as the Pope was of course shedding tears, the good and friendly goodbye, as both and Asta made their way to the Magic Night exam. However, as Asta and Yuno were traveling, this is when Asta would actually then feel a certain pull to a certain store. At this, Asta would just enter into the store just as Yuno had went out to get stuff to eat. As when Asta walks in there, he would actually see a bunch of fine equipment. Interesting, Asta would say, as he actually looked around at the cool weapons. Of course, during the month period, Asta, of course, during training, as well as spending time with this alternate personality of his, to which Asta had figured out, sort of, he actually had sort of gotten more interested in the sword arts. In fact, he got interested in being a swordsman, actually. As Asta was looking around, looking at all the different swords, he would actually see one that was very interesting. It was not like any other sword that he's seen before, as unlike the ones that he had on him, which was a blunt blade, this one looked way thinner, as well as it looked completely different from the sword he's seen like in stories. At this, Asta will look at it, and then he will turn to the owner of the sword, who is currently right now just sitting down. "Hey, what exactly is this?" At this, the man will look at the blade as he then says, "Ah, that one is an odd one. I just found it, laying around somewhere." At this, Asta will look at the blade, and it was completely unusual. It seemed to be well crafted, but it also seemed to be quite sharp and durable. At this, Asta would of course check the price tag to see how much it goes for, only to see that it's going for relatively cheap. At this, Asta will look at the man and actually be asked like why was it for cheap, to which the man explained that for such an odd and tiny blade, he could not see very much use from it. But Asta thought otherwise. Honestly, to swords like this, he felt more at use to them. So with that, Asta would of course pay the man, as he actually had bought the blade, as he had to admit it just seemed to resonate with him. It felt more of his style, although he didn't feel 100% with it, it still felt well. This was of course a katana, as I would say this, when you really think about it, how come like in this world, only Yami is the one with the katana? Really think about it. And the fact that not many people like really know about it, it gets a little bit confusing. So of course not a lot of people would look at it and not see the real value behind it. Okay, but that's just my explanation, okay? But moving right along. Asta would of course take the blade. As you know, by the time he came back, he saw Asta with a new sword. He asked Asta about it, to which Asta just explained that he felt more at use with a sword like this. However, Asta knew that deep down, this sword, although he felt a pretty good use with it, it was not going to stick for long until he finally found a true sword that connected with him. But until then, Asta was going to make the use of it. However, this is when suddenly Asta wouldn't see his blade then be coated by anti-magic, as the grimoire had just opened up as the book seemed to be swallowing his katana. Asta of course tried to stop it. However, sadly it was too late, as the one in shiny silver blade had just turned a little bit. It looked blunter, it looked dull, and it looked way worse than it looked before. At this, Asta goes ahead and sheds off a couple of anime tears, as after a very comedic moment, they eventually continue on their path until they eventually arrive at the Magic Night exam. Seeing this, both Asta and Yuno sign up like they do in canon, and finally the tests end up beginning. Now, not much will really change from the exams, I would say, since really the only thing to know about this is the fact that 1, Asta does slightly better in some of the parts. For example, when it came to attack targets, Asta was really good with it, as he actually was strong enough to make small little wind slashes with his katana, as he was able to go ahead and leave pretty bad dents. Also, another thing was the fact of Asta encountering Yami. As while walking, Asta of course had actually decided to keep the katana by his side right next to him with the sheath, as when he was walking he would eventually bump into the captain of the Black Bulls, Yami Sukahiro. When Yami saw Asta, he would of course put a hand on his head, as Asta tried prying off the man's arm. However, he realized that this man was wicked strong. In fact, Asta couldn't even budge his hand even a little bit. However, as Yami was doing so, he would then take notice to a sword that looked oddly similar to his. He would then let go of Asta, as he then says, "Hey brat, where did you get that sword?" At this, Asta looks at it and then says, "Ah, this? Actually, if you wouldn't believe it, I got it actually on a town nearby." At this, of course, Yami looks at him like confused. However, it was kind of weird to see someone with a katana, considering the fact that he did not know a lot of people who even had one, except for him and a few others. So after that, Asta of course continue on with the exam, as not really, like I said, not really much changes. There was that encounter with Yami, as well as also the fact that Asta does slightly better in this exam. However, this when finally it was time for the one-on-one matches, and this will go completely different, but will have similar results. Haha guy, which that's what I'm gonna call him, I don't know his name, will go ahead and say that to give Asta like a good show, as he wants to show everyone just how good he is, and that he wants Asta to at least put up a decent fight. To which Asta does nothing more but promises that he will go all out. Just like that, Yuno as well as everyone watch in shock, as Asta as well as the men get into the center of the arena, as Yuno looks on with interest, as he wonders just how strong did Asta become, or if maybe if he actually got lucky he might see Asta's true power, to which Yuno had dubbed the other side of Asta. At this, Asta does nothing more but crouch down position, as he goes ahead and pulls out the katana instantly as he gets into a stance. At this, Sierra goes ahead and forms this weird this weird sphere with cannons shooting out, as he ends up explaining to everyone about his magic work, while Asta said nothing more. At this, Asta then speaks. "Alright, let's do it." As just like that, Asta's whole expression would change, as instead of being goofing around, he also would be dead serious right now, as his eyes were focusing on the haha guy as if he was nothing more than prey. At this, everyone was in shock, as even Yuno was surprised, as this was still the same Asta. This was not the other one that was taking, this was not like Asta's true power. No, this was just regular Asta, but more focused, as Yuno had never seen Asta pull an expression like this. He only saw it from the other one. No words were said, as this one suddenly Asta would just vanish right before everyone's eyes, as everyone was in shock at this, as even Yuno couldn't really see Asta at this moment. "What?" thought Yuno, while the captains look on in shock, with Yami actually going ahead and saying, "God dang." As this one also would appear right behind Seke, which by the way, yeah, that's his name. At this, also would then put the blade back into his sheath calmly, as he goes ahead and turns to the man. "You were saying?" This is when the man would then suddenly see as his fuse was cut up into nothing, as he would have multiple cuts all over, but the biggest one that caught everyone's attention was the ginormous cut across his torso. As the eyes would roll back into his head, as he would be foaming at the mouth, the man would fall down to the ground, falling unconscious, as the ref would declare Asta the winner. Asta would say nothing more as he begins to walk away, as he ends up joining with the crowd. Yuno feeling a little bit proud of Asta as he goes ahead and smiles, as it seems like even without the true power, Asta was still strong, as Yuno's eyes could barely even track Asta, as this caused Yuno to strive even further to surpass his rival. As after that, the rest of the matches continue on with Yuno beating a random noble, as after that, not really much changes from the events. Yuno still gets all the captain's hands to raise up, as of course Yuno joins the Golden Dawn. As for Asta, he gets stuck with the Black Bulls, to which Yami, of course, this time Asta got Yami's hand to just shoot up instantly, as Yami was interested in Asta. The sword technique that Yami, he himself wasn't shocked the way that Asta just moved his hands, as it seemed as if every part of Asta's body was in sync with it. So with that, Asta ends up joining the Black Bulls, as after that, both Asta and Yuno make that final vow, as this is where they will go their separate ways, as we're now going towards the Black Bulls base. We now move towards the Black Bulls base where chaos was erupting. Their entire base was getting destroyed due to the fact that everyone was doing some wacky stuff, with Magma and Luck fighting each other, Vanessa drinking herself to the point where she was gonna pass out, Gauche being Gauche, and pretty much Gray just being Gray. Everyone was doing their own thing, causing mass destruction, while Asta looks on in shock as he couldn't believe that he was actually in a Magic Knight squad. However, right before he even got the chance though, this is when Yami would of course slam his hand to the wall, causing more damage, causing everyone to gain his attention. At this, each one of them would then line up as he would introduce Asta to everyone. Magma, of course, still being the same person that he was in canon, would of course challenge Asta, saying that it was finally time for initiation, to which Asta would respond saying that he was down for that. At this, instantly, they will go ahead and change scene as all the Black Bulls were on the couch that they brought out, while Asta and Magma were both at separate distance. At this is when Magma would then shoot off a fireball, to which Asta would of course unsheath his katana, cutting it in half like it was nothing. As Asta and Magma go ahead and shout, however, this is when Asta would then calm down as his whole demeanor turned serious, as he realized that now was not time for playing, as this was time for his initiation and he needs to take it seriously. This was part of the side of Asta that sort of matured, as Asta is knowing like when situations get serious and also when not to be. With this, Magma instantly ends up shooting off more and more fireballs, as Asta goes ahead and begins to cut them with his katana like it was nothing, as everyone of the Black Bulls was watching on in shock, while Yami, the captain of the Black Bulls, was concentrating on the way that Asta was using the katana. As Asta, each time he would swing, Yami could see that each time he was slowly just getting better and better, as Yami was just wondering like, who the heck is this kid? As it seems like even when Asta is using a katana, he continues getting better and better at using it. As this causes Yami to end up asking more questions like, who was Asta, who exactly is he, and how does he know how to do all this stuff? With those questions formulating after the last fireball, to which Asta had cut in half, this is when Magma will of course finally pull off the big guns, as he ends up shooting off a fireball. However, just like that, just when Asta was about to cut it, this one suddenly it would just disappear and appear right in front of Asta. At this, Asta's eyes will widen as he realized that he wouldn't be able to react in time if he does this. Even with the katana, he wouldn't be able to. However, this one, just like that, in a very small millisecond, Asta's whole demeanor changed, as well as in someone else took control. Yami, who was looking at this, eyes will widen, as he will see Asta's blade moving so fast that even he couldn't react. As this is when suddenly Magma's flaming ball would then suddenly just be cut in half, but that was not the most shocking thing. As a slash would go ahead and cut through the ground itself, reaching towards Magma, who had no choice but to dodge as a small bit of his hair got cut in the process. As this slash was so powerful, it cut off 4 of the trees that were right behind Magma. is a small miniature, as a pretty large and small miniature crater at the same time, would just appear right in front of all of them. Asta's katana was of course down, as Asta was looking at all of them, until suddenly he would just switch back in an instant. Yami, who catching all of this, was just wondering like, who was that? As that was definitely something that the kid, even though he had to admit Asta was skilled, at his current skill level, there was no way he could have reacted to that so fast in such a short amount of time. As Yami was trying to figure this out, Magma had walked up to Asta and eventually ended up, telling Asta that he had passed the trial, to which Asta was of course happy, as this was Asta's very first time actually being accepted and joined into the Black Bulls. So we're now gonna go ahead and do a time skip to the next day. Now this part, not really much changes, as Magma was showing Asta around the Black Bull's base, as Asta of course has to clean the floors, do everything. Yeah, pretty much Asta was gonna have to do a lot of stuff, but he was up for the challenge. However, as they were walking and joking around, as this is when suddenly someone will begin to laugh. You commoners are so amusing, was the voice of Noelle Silva. Yep, I'm sorry, but she's gonna remain like that for this part, only for like this part right now. As of course Magma seeing her would get ticked off, while Asta was just confused about the whole ordeal. At this, she ends up explaining this and that, how commoners are funny and all this, as she was a royalty. However, Asta honestly had no care in the world, while Magma was just straight up talking some big doo-doo. However, this is when Noelle would see Asta's reaction, and not liking that he didn't know his place, would shoot off a water ball at him. Reacting fast, Asta would of course pull out the katana, as he ends up slashing the water bubble right in half, right in front of both Magma and Noelle, who was in shock the way Asta just easily took care of her spell. At this, Asta would then look at her and says, "That attack could have actually hurt me, or someone else," he would say in a very serious tone. At this, Noelle would look at Asta in shock, while Magma was actually looking at Asta with respect, as the way he did it sounded so badass and manly. Of course, however, Noelle, not wanting to deal with any more of this bull, will go ahead, take off the Black Bull's robe, throwing it onto the ground and run away. Asta, seeing her run away, would realize that maybe he was a little bit harsh, as he decides to go ahead and chase after her, while Magma goes ahead and was, of course, sobbing over the robe that was just thrown on the floor. So we're now going to do a small miniature time skip, to which Asta was just walking through the forest. As Asta was walking, of course, he had practiced a little bit on the way, using his katana to cut down some trees. As while he was doing so, he was also trying to find a way to replicate what that, the other version of him did, that being trying to cut down multiple trees with just one slash. As the most that Asta was able to cut down was a total of, I would say like 5 to 6 trees. Well, the other version of himself is able to cut 4 of them with ease. Asta, he still needs to concentrate a little bit in order to cut 5 and 6. So as Asta was currently walking down, he would eventually see Noelle practicing, missing all her shots, hitting bricks, as Asta would walk over to her. Wow, it's not really that surprising that you would struggle, he would say. At this, Noelle would look at Asta, as he would go ahead and say that he was actually impressed by her magic potential. However, to Noelle, she was too busy, and shocked that she got caught to even pay attention to his words, as she would shoot off a water bubble at Asta. At just like that, Asta was about to react. However, this one suddenly the bubble would just turn back to Noelle, hitting her as she begins to levitate in the air. At this, Asta looks around and she sees her magic begin to build up, as she formed a ginormous water sphere that was floating her up into the air. At this, Asta would look on in shock. However, he knew that he had to do something about it, as he ends up screaming that she would go ahead and save her, as he goes ahead and begins to run off. Back with the Black Bulls, they would see all this happening, as Asta would of course run out of the forest, something about it. To which Yami was just like, "Hey, I have an idea." He would grab Asta by the top of his head, as he was then yeet him towards Noelle, while Asta didn't say, "I didn't agree to this." Flying above the skies, as Asta was getting sent flying, he was going ahead and concentrating, as he will begin to charge up the anti-magic to the blade. Now, Asta doesn't know that this is anti-magic, okay? He doesn't really know about it, but he does know that he has a certain pull to it, like he's able to semi-manipulate it. Now, I'm not saying that Asta is able to do everything like he does, like in the time skip, but I'm saying that he's getting there. As Asta goes ahead and concentrate, he will finally get it as his blade was covered in the dark energy. As finally, after approaching Noelle's bubble, he will go ahead and shoot off a dark slash. As Asta looks on with a smile on his face, as the dark slash was successful in cutting up the sphere of water, Asta would of course catch Noelle in time. However, only to realize that they had no way of going down, considering the fact that Asta didn't know how to fly. At this, Asta was falling down, as this is when a portal would then open up from Finral, to which Asta would of course fall through it, still holding Noelle, and landing calmly on his feet. At this, Finral was of course upset that he didn't catch Noelle, as Asta was currently helping Noelle up. Of course, seeing that she was surrounded, Noelle was of course expecting the same thing that she does in canon, only for everyone to start complimenting her on her magic. At this, Noelle looks on in shock at everyone as Asta continues on, explaining how complimenting her. However, this is when she would of course ask for Asta's name, only for him to say Asta, and this was the very start of Noelle developing feelings for Asta. So yep, not really much changes here. Oh, I forgot another thing. I apologize for that, but Nero has still been following Asta. It's just the fact that she's just been mostly hiding in Asta's hair due to the fact that, well, she can. Is there any point to go any further? Like, she just can. So, moving right along to the next few days, not really much changes here as Asta still does most of the stuff that he does in canon. I would say that Asta spends more time training with, using his new katana, as well as trying to come up with more techniques. The dark slash that Asta had created, he had concentrated on trying to do it for less time, as well as he's trying to get a feel of manipulating this weird energy that he has, his magic. To which Asta, to him, he dubs it as magic, but he honestly doesn't know how to use it properly. The best he can do is just make the dark slash. However, as Asta was of course practicing, eventually he would then get a message from, of course, Yami. Once he explained to Asta, Noelle, and Magma that they made a bet, him and Magma lost, and now they have to do something for the village chief. So just like that, all of them were assigned onto a mission, that being to go ahead and sort of just take care of a bunch of the wild boars. With that, Asta, Noelle, and Magma would go ahead and do so, as he would each begin to take on, a bunch of boars, with Asta doing most of the work by himself. Thanks to his ability with swords, Asta was able to take care of about multiple of them with ease, while Magma was just, flaying them down with his fire magic. Noelle, not being able to help since she still had no control over her magic at this point, just sat there idly by, watching Asta most of the time. By the time they were done, Magma was of course, talking to Noelle, as both of them were having an argument, while Asta, he was focusing on something else. During the time of training, Asta had begun to realize that slowly but surely he began to be able to give a feel about something. As while this was happening, this is when Asta would then begin to, breathe in the air around him until he sensed something. As he begins to sense like a bunch of just negative energy, and it was coming from the village. As this when suddenly Asta would then put on a serious demeanor as he ends up speaking, "Guys, there's something happening over there." At this, both Magma and Noelle look at Asta, as this when Magma would actually see a bunch of mist at his village, as he could also sense a hint of magic. Due to this, he already knows most of the people there, and he never seen anyone with magic like that. Due to this, Magma goes ahead and agrees with Asta, as each one of them begin to run. Over there, back at the village that Magma came from, we would see the village leader, who's currently on the ground, as he had a pretty bad wound on his chest, due to the fact that one of the mages had accidentally hit him with a magic spell. At this, he was on his knees as he tried his best to form magic to protect his people, but sadly, the life in his eyes was beginning to fade fast, as he was not going to be able to hold out much longer. Due to this, the man who was there, who was holding a timer, would just say, "Great, this has already taken up enough time, finish him off." As just when the last mage was about to finish off the old man, this is when suddenly a dark slash would intercept the attack right before it was able to hit him. At this, blowing past the mist, will then suddenly appear both Asta, Magma, and Noelle, as they all had appeared to help. Of course, Magma, seeing the damage that this man do to his home, would glare at them with so much hatred that they would be dead 1,000 times over. Noelle, looking at the damage, could do nothing more but look on with worriness, while Asta was keeping on his serious demeanor. At this, Asta began to speak, saying that he didn't know who these guys were, but he was going to stop them from completing their task. While the men who were there, especially their leader, was looking down at the watch, realizing that they just brought more nuisances. However, he was just going to take care of it, as he ends up shooting off a bunch of icicle spears at them. Asta, seeing them coming, would then of course intercept them with his dark slashes, which he was able to make much more faster, as Asta, at this point in time, he was very powerful. He was pretty powerful right now. As after intercepting those slashes, Asta dashes off at the man, ready to go into combat. While this is happening, Magma begins to take care of the other mages, who shoot off a bunch of attacks at Magma, trying to overwhelm him. However, due to the fact that, like I said, Magma was pissed off, he was beginning to deal with them quite easily. However, while this is happening though, the villagers would of course accidentally begin to get a little bit caught in the crossfire, as this caused them to actually panic and try to back away, while Noelle, having nothing else to do, would try to come up with a solution. Due to her resolve in trying to help these people and save them, Noelle would eventually end up using the sea dragon's barrier, which just was strong enough to protect the villagers from getting hurt. So due to that, they're all protected. So yeah, not really much changes for Noelle in this point of the canon. As for Asta, he was going pretty well, as he was able to take on the man much more easy. Unlike in canon, this time Asta really knew how to deal with this type of guy. Also, due to the fact that Asta was much more skilled with the sword, the man was not really having much of a challenge to Asta. As the man himself was in shock of this, considering the fact he couldn't sense any sort of magic from Asta, yet this man was getting in the way. As he was wondering just how the heck was Asta doing it, he would suddenly have to dodge a dark slash, which he was not fast enough to dodge, as he had a pretty bad cut on his cheek. As Asta would then rush in on him fast enough to the point where he was able to get a couple of inches in. "Damn it," said the man as he tries to make an icicle spear, trying to stab it into Asta. However, it was too late, as with a powerful dark slash, Asta was able to get a dark slash on his chest, leaving a powerful mark on it. At this, the man goes ahead and gets sent flying, crashing into a wall, as he was unable to move any further. "Dang it," he would say, as he couldn't believe that he is actually failing now. Now, while this is happening, Magma was strong enough to take care of the other members. Although he was completely exhausted since he had to waste a lot of his magic energy, there was not really much he can do. So, after that, we're now gonna go ahead and do a time skip. As not, like I said, not really much changes here, due to the fact that Asta in this timeline, he is already way more powerful than he was at this point. So right now, we see Asta as well as the rest of them now round up the guys, as they were now interrogating them. However, while this was happening though, Asta and Noelle was currently watching, Noelle and Magma were helping the village chief, while Asta was keeping an eye on the men to make sure they didn't do anything. By that I mean Asta had kept his anti-magic katana on all of them, preventing them from using magic. At this, the man looks at Asta, seems to explain that he's not going to say anything to him, to which Asta goes ahead and lands a gut punch, telling him to speak up. At this, the man said nothing more, as this when Asta then feels something approaching as he backs away from him. As just like that, each one of the men would then be covered up in ice until they suddenly just get destroyed instantly. While Magma and Noelle saw that, as Magma would then say, they end yourself just from telling a secret? While this is happening though, Asta was looking at this in shock, as he wondered just how far would these people go just to prevent them from knowing. As Asta was wondering this, however, the village chief, he was currently in bad condition, so to take a mind off of it, Asta decided to help Magma and Noelle. So once again, we do a time skip. The village chief had luckily been able to survive, as they were luckily to get medical help just in time. However, due to the bad injury that he got, the man unfortunately, well, let's just say he's not going to be able to walk for a pretty long time. Due to this, Magma actually felt pretty ashamed of himself, as he was not able to help the very person who helped get his life in order. However, Asta will put a hand on Magma's shoulder as he sees Magma, looking down, to which he ends up explaining that it's better to learn from your mistakes and push past them, than to go ahead and linger on them and fill yourself then with regret. At this, Magma looks at Asta in surprise, as he was actually surprised that Asta was pretty mature, as the first time he saw Asta, he had to admit, he thought he was a knucklehead, a manly one, but a knucklehead nonetheless. So with that being said, the group of mages finally not taking care of the job. Everyone in the village were thanking Asta, Noelle, and Magma for saving them, which Noelle was taking it with great stride, while Magma, of course, was looking at them with determination, while Asta was just being Asta, you know. However, in the back of Asta's mind, though, he wondered, like, just what was going on here. It didn't make sense to Asta. How far were they willing to go just to keep the secret if they were just going to go ahead to do everything in their power just to hide it from them, even if it meant ending themselves? As Asta was wondering this, though, he did know one thing. Asta was strong, but he needed to get even stronger. As if he had arrived even faster than he did in this time, he probably could have saved the man from, from taking such bad injuries. So with that, Asta had even more strides to become even better. As for Noelle, she was currently happy due to the fact that, she had one magic spell. She was actually able to control it this time, and she was actually able to do something. So with that, after all that being said, finally all the members of the Black Bulls decided to leave the village, as everyone else was finally protected and in peace. So after that happened, Yami of course gave the Wizard King the report, and the Wizard King, after hearing such good prowess, actually gave them a star. To which Asta, as well as everyone else, was surprised by it. Also after that, Vanessa actually ended up asking Noelle and Asta to go and come with her, and she ends up explaining about a magic store where they can get things relatively cheap. Asta would still send half of them, not even half, most of the money to his village. Well, I guess he could go ahead and save some up to get something for himself. So with that, Vanessa ends up taking them to the same store like they do in canon, with Asta just tagging along with them. However, as Asta was walking along, he ended up seeing a bunch of good swords, to which he was wondering if he had any connection with them. However, sadly, he didn't feel pulled to any of them. However, Asta did spend some of his money, as he ended up asking a blacksmith to sharpen his sword, to which he was actually able to do so, causing his katana to get a little bit sharper. Although thanks to the fact the anti-magic, it still looked a little bit blunt, as well as it looked a little bit dull too, as well as it looked rusty. But still, it was sharp and was strong enough to cut. However, as this was happening though, eventually a man goes ahead and steals a purse, as of course Seke tries to stop the man, only for Asta to go ahead and steal his glory, taking out the man with just one hit. After that, both Vanessa and Noelle go ahead and just celebrate for Asta, while Asta ends up giving the elderly woman the bag. As after that, both Noelle, Asta, and Vanessa would eventually leave, with Noelle still getting the magical wand that she got in canon, as we now turn our attention elsewhere as we see the Wizard King now walking away. As he had to admit, he was actually surprised, as he was in disguise as the old lady the entire time, but he had to admit he was interested in Asta. One was the fact of that weird grimoire of his, which seemed to have an oddly aura shooting off of it. It was not magic, 100% it was not magic, but it was something powerful indeed. And there was also something about Asta. The way that Asta was able to use a sword quite efficiently just to stop the thief was very surprising to him, as he had a hard time keeping track of Asta, as he wondered just who exactly was this Asta. As he enjoyed the idea of new potential, however, he would just suddenly go ahead and begin to walk away, feeling pretty proud of himself and everything. I mean, like, bro, come on now. He got to see something interesting today. As this will be the end for the Magic Night Exams arc. Yes, guys, that entire thing was the Magic Night Exams arc. I'm in shock too. But yeah, it was a pretty long arc. Hope you all did enjoy this part 1 for the What If. I know probably I sound like boring at some times, and this and this and that. But I think I have a good idea what I'm going to do for, Asta. Is I'm thinking about having him have like an alternate ego. For example, I got the idea from Zetsu from Demon Slayer, how when like he's awake, he's like a completely different person to when he's asleep. So yeah, I was sort of going for something like that, something similar but not exactly the same. But hey, what do you guys think? What do you guys want to happen next? Why don't you guys type down in the comments down below? And besides that, guys, hope you have a wonderful day. And it's Sage D Samurai, and I'm finally signing off. Peace.